Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Bat Around. I'm your host, Paul Valley. He is my co-host, Ryan Blake. Um, it says that our connection is lost. Do you have a connection there, Ryan?
It seems
Can
fine
you
to
hear
me.
me?
Can you hear me and see me all right? Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you and see you just fine. Let me pull up Facebook, see if we're airing there. This is the second straight week that this has happened. When I set up the show, it says that the link to it says that the link to that our um, subscription with Facebook is expiring soon, and now it says that our connection is lost. Let me see if we're coming through on Pressbox. It says that we're live. Yeah, we're coming through. So
Yeah,
we're gonna get rolling along here. Welcome to the Bat Around.
cool.
Sorry again for more technical difficulties to start the show. Not quite sure what's going on there, but hopefully we can get this figured out at some point. I'll reach out to the powers that be after the show today and say, hey, what's going on, guys? And see what we can't get figured out. So
Seems
but
a-okay on my end, but I know you're a little more on the sharing side of all this.
yeah, everything seems fine. It just says, oops, connection lost, reconnecting, but maybe that's with YouTube. I don't know. If you're trying to watch on YouTube or you are watching on YouTube or on Facebook and you can see us fine, let us know in the chat just so we can squash any concerns that we have there. I want to remind you today's show is brought to you by Royal Farms. Chicken Palooza continues at your neighborhood Royal Farms. This year's deals include a 3-piece meal for just $8 and an 8-piece meal for just $12. Plus, you can go to royalfarms.com and enter for your chance to win chicken for a year. And while you're there, vote for your favorite charity as Royal Farms is donating 10 cents from every 3-piece meal sold during Chicken Palooza to the winning charity. Plus, don't forget to get your Chicken Palooza gear to celebrate everyone's favorite season. Stop by your neighborhood Rofo today. Looks like the Orioles got some delicious Royal Farms chicken into them over the break as they win one going away last night 9-1 over the defending world champion Texas Rangers. It is the Orioles' fourth victory in 5 tries over the Rangers this season after getting swept in the postseason last year by them. Corbin Burns, another Corbin Burns outing, 6 innings pitched, just 2 hits, 1 earned run, 4 walks, which is surprising. You don't see Burns walk 4 guys in an outing, really ever, and 6 strikeouts. How good was Corbin Burns last night, Ryan?
Yeah, the 4 walks a little concerning, but he limited the damage. Only those 2 hits, only the 1 run. It's hard to complain with another quality start. He's been locked down solid all season long. And so, not his sharpest, but hey, we've beat this point home with Corbin Burns all season. Even when he's not at his best, he's really good. And that's what you want from your ace. And he delivered last night, especially on a day when the offense was firing on, well, I shouldn't say firing on all cylinders because we'll get to some of the struggles soon, but it's hard to complain on a night when you score 9 and only give up 1.
Exactly. Nathan Eovaldi, who, we remember game 3 of the ALDS last year, absolutely dominated the Orioles with 7 innings pitched, 5 hits, 1 run, 7 strikeouts, and 0 walks. Well, last night, the only thing that rang true was the 0 walks. He went 5 innings. He allowed 8 hits, 6 earned runs, including 3 home runs. It is by a wide margin his worst start of the year. Came in with a 2.96 ERA. That ERA went up 40 points last night. He had gone 7 innings in each of his last 4 starts. He had allowed 3 earned runs on 13 hits with 18 strikeouts his last 3 starts, covering 21 innings pitched. And the Orioles and Tony Taters just absolutely took him to the woodshed last night, taking care of him with 6 earned runs on those 3 home runs. Santander comes out of the All-Star break. He had that big base hit that allowed Jarren Duran to come up, win the MVP by hitting a go-ahead and eventual game-winning 2-run homer. Santander last night stayed hot, 3 for 5, 2 moonshot home runs, 5 RBI. Anthony Santander, 26 home runs. He's just 2 behind Gunnar Henderson for second in the American League.
Yeah, he hasn't been far behind. That hot June really caught him up to pace, top 5 in all of baseball, and 26 home runs on the season already is what more can you ask for? This is a guy he's on pace for 40 now. It'd be his first career 40 homer season, and if he and Gunnar can both hit that number, it'd be a pretty remarkable sign for this Orioles offense. And gosh, I mean, what a time for him to come alive too in a contract year where he's likely going to hit the free agent market unless the Orioles give him a contract extension. Good for him, man. You got to feel happy for a guy like that. Still not a huge on base guy, but the power numbers have been better than ever, and they were already really good. So really happy for Tony, especially coming out of the All-Star game. Really cool to see him get a hit. It kind of, you know, it was almost a Nick Markakis feel where it's a guy who's been, rock solid for several years, had never made an All-Star team. He gets in as a replacement for the injured Kyle Tucker and comes through with a base hit and scores the game-winning run. So really happy for him to carry that momentum into the first game of the second half. Two really impressive home runs for him, and yeah, really cool to see.
Yeah, and you hope it's a sign of things to come for Santander and for the Orioles. Is now they're in the home stretch. They got about 65 games left in the season, and then it's the postseason, baby. And we got the trade deadline coming up. Hopefully, the Orioles can add to the roster. But Santander is going to be a huge part of this roster moving forward for the rest of this season. You mentioned Gunnar Henderson, 4 for 5 last night. Ho home, just 4 singles, 3 runs scored.
Ooh.
Adley Rutschman, all this talk about how he's so much better when he DHs as a hitter than when he catches. And he kind of puts that to bed with a 2-run homer in the first inning last night. Then he adds a walk later in the game. Just 1 for 4, but it was a big one as he hit that 2-run homer to give the Orioles a quick lead. The Orioles 1 through 4 hit. Oh, Colton Cowser, also a 2-run homer in the first inning last night. The Orioles 1 through 4 hitters last night, and that includes Ryan O'Hearn. 9 for 18, 3 home runs, a double, 8 runs scored, 7 ribeye stakes, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. And when a game goes as well as it went last night, you don't want to, sit there and harp on the negative. But I wouldn't be me. Just ask the people on Twitter if I didn't harp on the negative, right? And it's not the negative. It's just we saw what happened for the last 15 games of the first half and just how few runs the Orioles were scoring. And so there are concerns. And you look at the bottom half of the Orioles lineup, and they are still struggling. The Orioles 5 through 9 hitters on Friday night went 2 for 20. Colton Cowser hit that first inning home run. They drove in 2, had a run scored, no walks, 4 of the 5 team strikeouts. And let's look at those hitters. Okay, Jordan Westburg. In his last 4 games, he is 0 for 15 with a walk, 7 strikeouts. His batting average is down to 268, which is the lowest it's been since he was at 265 on April 14th. So it's been 3+ months since Jordan Westburg has been below 270. Ryan Mountcastle, 196 with a 488 OPS his last 15 games with just 2 extra base hits and just 2 walks. He did snap a 5-game hitting streak last night where he had gone 7 for 20. So you don't want to just blast him for having a tough half month, but 196 with a 488 OPS for a guy who until recently was hitting in the heart of your order. He's got to be better. In June, we were talking about how hot Cedric Mullins had gotten, but in his last 14 games, 143, 182, 191, 372. He's 6 for 42 with 11 strikeouts and just 1 walk. Jorge Mateo has a 3-game hitting streak, but since June 1st, he's hitting 218 with a 581 OPS, 2 doubles, 2 home runs. And since June 1st, he has just 3 stolen bases. The big part of his game is his legs. It's his speed. In 26 games, he's got 3 stolen bases. He's got to be doing more than that. He's got to be finding a way to get on base. He's got to be finding a way to use his legs. And then Colton Cowser, man, we had seen a few weeks back, he had a 3-homer week. We were hoping that he was finding his way back to that hot start they got off to in April. Since that 3-homer week, 5 for 35, 1 home run, 3 walks, 13 Ks. That's a 143, 211, 229, 439 slash line in 11 games. Again, you don't want to harp on the negative, but this lineup is far too dependent on the top 4 in the order to get things done. And when those guys don't hit, now you're looking at an entire lineup that's not going to hit, that's going to go into an offensive slump again. The Orioles have to figure out, Ryan, how to get that bottom half of the order clicking.
Yeah, and it starts with Westburg for me. An all-star for this team this year. and he's had an awesome year, and he's still having an awesome year, but it's been a cold stretch. He seems like he's pressing at the plate. He's really swing happy right now, it seems to me. Um, Been a lot of at bats where he's getting down two strikes, and we saw a good stretch run for him where he was a really good two-strike hitter. And it seemed like you get two strikes on Westberg, he's still going to put the ball in play and try to make something happen. And more recently, it's been quick 0-2 counts and, hasn't been able to come through in those situations.
It's
So,
just uncompetitive at bats. We've seen from
yeah,
Westberg the last few games.
and it's strange because he's such I kind of hate to use the term professional hitter because we've used that for several guys over the years, but Westberg is a professional hitter, and you expect professional at bats from that guy, and he
Mm-hmm.
hasn't been giving them to us lately. I do think he'll snap out of it. I think he just needs to see a couple balls hit the grass, and he'll be all right. But it starts with him, I think, to give the bottom of that order a spark. Ryan Mountcastle, he missed a few games with what the team described as an illness or feeling under the weather. I have a hard time believing he's not dealing with at least a little bit of that vertigo that troubled him last year. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know too much about vertigo, but my understanding of it is that it's not typically a one and done thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you suffer from vertigo, it's gonna come back at certain times. And hopefully he's not dealing with that, but it kind of seems like it's something similar, because he's been ice cold at the plate lately. Um, Good to see, in my opinion, him being moved down to 6th and 7th in the order recently. I think it'll be good for, a little bit of a reset for him. And he's a guy who, any game is capable of having, going 2 for 4 with a homer or,
Mm-hmm.
a double, whatever. Um, it's nice that he's, hopefully, down in the bottom half of the order, getting, a little more comfortable. You did
Power
mention that
way down for
it's been
Mountcastle.
really down.
Well, way down.
We talked a couple weeks ago about how he was a couple games from going a full calendar month without a home run, and then he hit one, but hasn't hit one since.
Mm-hmm.
And you did talk about that 5-game hitting streak, so he's been seeing the ball a little bit better, but obviously we want to see him get hot, and hopefully it's not the kind of illness that's lingering and sticking around and affecting his ability to see the ball at the plate.
Well, but here's that 7 for 20 stretch, that 5 game hitting streak. How many of those base hits were little flares to right
Yeah,
field, which doesn't breed a lot of confidence? It makes you think that like he's a little bit late. He's maybe hitting one off the fist or off the end of the bat. He's not making solid contact. He's just hitting them where they ain't with little flares, which is fine. But if he has vertigo, it kind of can explain how the base hits he's getting aren't hit with authority. This is a guy that you're expecting to. You drafted him because you knew that he would hit with power. Now we're into what, year 5 of his big league career, and aside from his first full rookie year when he had the 33 home runs, that power has kind of waned. He's only top 20 once since then. You're looking to see more power out of this guy. I think he's got what, 11, 12, 13 home runs right now. You were expecting him to be closer to 20 at this point in the year.
yeah, I'm not sure he's even up there, is he? I think he was at 8 when he went through the month-long power slump. So I'm not I could be wrong, but I feel like he has 9 this year. And I can tell you're looking that up, so definitely correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I seem to recall, I think there was a 3-hit game.
He's got 12. He's at
He has
12
that
home
12.
runs.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. Yeah, I seem to recall a 3-hit game pretty recently where none of the 3 hits were hit exceptionally hard. They were,
They were
kind
all
of
to
jam
right
shots
field.
into right field. Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously seeing the ball hit the grass is great, but you want to see some more solid contact from him.
Ryan, it's crazy because I was at a game last year when Mountcastle hit 3 home runs, or maybe it was 2 home runs, but he
The ath-
drove in.
the
Was it
Athletics
3?
game,
Yeah, was that 2 or 3 home runs?
I think it was 2 homers, but it was 9 RBIs.
But he drove in 9, and he was so hot in that game, and then he had 18 RBI that week, and he came up 2 different times in that game. It was actually with both of his home runs, and I said, this is not the guy that the Athletics want to face with runners on base. And he homered, and then I said it again. I was like, Mountcastle's about to do some damage here again. And then he hit that grand slam, and it was a 9 RBI game for him, and he looked like he had arrived. And it's been a struggle, with the exception of when he came back from vertigo for that 2-month stretch last year. It's been a struggle for him to regain anything close to that form ever since then.
Yeah, and you wonder if I hate to. You wonder if the wall plays a little bit of a factor. I know the right-handed hitters um, don't enjoy hitting at Camden Yards as much as they used to, and you
Right.
wonder if that's made him kind of change his approach a little bit. Like I know Trey Mancini in particular was really frustrated for a time when he was hitting some balls hard and they were would have been homers in previous years and they were flyouts or doubles whatever. So hopefully that's not too deep into his psyche, but it could impact his performance at the plate. But I do want to move on to the last couple guys here. Cedric Mullins, yeah, he had a stretch where I was like, all right, he might be back. And there's always going to be a part of me because of that 30-30 season he put up a few years ago that feels like he can really be a difference maker. He comes through with a big walk-off double against the Yankees in the last game of the first half back on Sunday. And that's the kind of thing where you hope that momentum carries into the second half. He's
Hmm.
had a couple big hits. But again, it was after his walk-off homer against the Twins on that Wednesday or Thursday afternoon, whatever it was, back in May. Um, After that, he was awful for a month and a half.
Right.
Um,
And it's
so
not like that walk off double was stung. It was a
no, it was
routine. It was a routine fly ball that Verdugo took the worst route ever on and fell
yeah,
flat on his face trying to get back to it. Like, and it was awesome to see. But it wasn't like it was a double down the line or one hit off the wall or into the gap. It was a routine fly ball that just wasn't called.
yeah. I mean, hilarious to watch Verdugo try to play that ball.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. I mean, that's one we'll remember forever.
Hmm.
And I think we're gonna talk about that game in a little bit. But nonetheless, it's something that you hope can kind of spark a little bit of momentum that he can carry into the second half. And he kind of had. It was. It wasn't normally after a guy hits a walk off, right? It's kind of a look of elation with the whole team. With Mullins on Sunday, it was almost like an anger where it was
Hmm.
like, they were coming off 5 straight losses. They needed that win bad. And Mullins' expression after that walk-off was just stone-faced, angry eyes, like,
Hmm.
come on, you know?
Yeah.
And that's something that's like that can really impact the mental side of the game where it's like, all right, I'm angry now and I'm gonna be angry at the plate. And that can
Hmm.
be a very good thing for hitters. It can also be a very bad thing. So it'll be interesting to see if that momentum carries. We talked about it a little bit last week where you can live with Mullins' bat struggling if the center field defense is still good, which it is. Um, but at some point something's got to give and you got to be able to get on base consistently, and same thing with Mateo. The speed is a big factor in his game, but it only really plays when he gets on base, and he's not getting on base recently.
You've got 230 stolen base guys hitting at the bottom of your order, and neither one of them are getting on base or stealing bases when they get on base. And Mullins had been caught 2 or 3 times in a row when the last few times he got on base and tried to run. It is that's a big part of both of their games, and they're not getting on base to even utilize them. When they aren't running. It's very frustrating to see. Now you mentioned that game on Sunday, and the Orioles absolutely needed that victory, Ryan. Make no mistake about it. You cannot go into the All-Star break getting swept by the Yankees to lose first place in the division. You absolutely cannot do that. And they enter the ninth up 3-2, and Craig Kimbrell immediately puts two guys on base and then gives up a 3-run homer to Ben Rice to turn that 3-2 lead into a 5-3 deficit. Orioles ended up loading the bases in the bottom half of the ninth. There's 2 outs. Mountcastle hits a ground ball to shortstop. All Anthony Volpe has to do is field it cleanly and flip it to second base. He bobbles it, flips it to second base too late. Everybody's safe. A run scores. And then Mullins comes up and hits this weak fly ball that Verdugo breaks in on, decides he has, oh crap, I have to run backwards, falls flat on his face. It drops in. Orioles win an improbable victory given the way that they won it to win that game 6-5 and take a 1-game lead into the All-Star break over the Yankees. Ryan, was that the biggest win of the year for the Orioles this season?
I absolutely. It wasn't my favorite win. It was kind of stressful.
Yeah.
And it wasn't exactly the cleanest ending. It took an error by a Gold Glove shortstop and then a complete gaffe in left field by Verdugo to give the Orioles that win after a blown save. But yeah, I look. it was a battle for first place. The two teams were tied going into that game, and the Orioles had been in the driver's seat of the division for about a month. And that's, you don't want to go into the All-Star break, A, on a 6-game losing streak, but B, having just dropped out of first place. So to be able to come out of that game with a win, stay a game above the Yankees, snap the losing skid before, a stretch of 4 days off, it's massive. And so, awesome to see. Is Let me ask you this, Paul. Is being a closer the hardest job in baseball? It's Craig Kimbrell has been absolutely rock solid for this team, with the exception of one bad week in late April to early May. He has been absolute nails. He should have been an all-star. He blows one save, and fans are calling for this guy's head. And how quickly we forget how dominant he has been. I understand it was a bad blown save. He walked the 8 and 9 hitters and then gave up a go-ahead homer to a rookie before he got an out. That's inexcusable, sure. But how soon we forget that this guy's a big reason why this team is in first place right now.
Ryan, it's got to be the most stressful job in Major League Baseball. But what's inexcusable to me, even if you're on a 5-game losing streak and haven't had an opportunity to use him, you can't go a full week without using your closer.
Agreed.
You cannot do that. You lost a game to the Cubs 8-0. What was it, that Thursday? You lose a game to the Cubs 8-0. You can't find a way to get Kimbrell an inning, or the game before that. He hadn't pitched in a week. Like, you can't. These guys need work, and getting up and warming up in a game, throwing a bullpen in the middle of the week, that doesn't serve the same purpose as getting your game time in. You can't go a week without using your closer. It just can't happen. And I put that as much on Brandon Hyde and his bullpen usage as I do on Craig Kimbrell. Absolutely, you cannot walk the 8 and 9 hitters, and you can't give up a 3-run homer in that situation. But you have to be used. You can't sit on the bench getting cobwebs for a full week. And he showed the ability to get the next 3 guys up, who were the 3 hardest guys in the lineup, to get out, and he got them all out. So he had that ability. It's a little of column A, little of Danny column B, where you're welcome. When you have kids, you'll make those jokes too. And I'm not going to hate on Craig Kimbrell. He's been absolutely nails for this team. They do need to go out and get themselves another bullpen arm, but I don't think that means that, unless you're getting Mason Miller, I don't think that means that Kimbrell's losing his job. You just got to be able to bridge that gap after the 6th inning, and know that we're shutting things down.
I'm with you there completely.
Today's show brought to you by Help My Gambling Problem. If you or a loved one has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit helpmygamblingproblem.org for free confidential services. Things have kind of taken a somber turn here, but the Orioles just won a game 9-1.
Yeah.
And this is coming out after the All-Star break, where we saw Gunnar Henderson using his Scooby-Doo bat performing in the home run derby. We saw Corbin Burns get to start for the All-Star game, throwing to Adley Rutschman while Gunnar Henderson manned shortstop. We saw Jordan Westbrook get some time in the second base. Anthony Santander got some time in line. He had 2 at-bats, had a big base hit where he ended up scoring the eventual game-winning run on a Jarren Duran 2-run homer. Ton of fun. American League comes away with the victory. Burns a hit and a walk in the scoreless inning. The batters, Ryan, Westberg, Santander, Henderson, and Rutschman combined to go 1 for 7. Although Gunnar had a ground out to the right side in the second at bat that advanced runners to second and third with 1 out and allowed 2 runs to score when Juan Soto, the next hitter, got a base hit up the middle to drive in those 2. So productive at bat there for Gunnar. He made a nice defensive play. Santander again with the 2-out single and the game-winning run. Ton of fun over the All-Star break. What were your feelings of Gunnar Henderson hit the least amount of home runs of anybody in the home run derby?
Yeah, I mean, kind of sucked. Sucked to watch. I'm not saying Gunner sucked. I didn't think Buck Britton was exceptionally sharp.
Mm-mm.
Giving him good pitches to hit. But yeah,
Did you
you
see
want
the
a better
tweet from?
performance.
Did you see the tweet from Zach Britton when they asked how's Buck Britton as a batting practice pitcher, and
Yeah, so
Zach tweeted out the thumbs down
I feel kind of
and then
bad
deleted
about
it.
that because so yeah, someone asked him about the batting practice arm and Britton responded with the thumbs down emoji, and then someone responded to him and then he said, "I'm sorry, like I meant the thumbs up." But
Mm-hmm.
I quote tweeted the thumbs down emoji. I said Zach tried to warn us. And then a few other people quote tweeted it and then he deleted it. And I felt kind of bad. I was like, I'm sorry. Look, I love you, Zach. I don't mean to put you on blast. I just thought it was funny. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, he wasn't great. Gunner, I didn't really expect him to win. I thought he was capable of it, but it was one of those feelings I had where it was like he's either going to go out and win the whole thing or he's not going to make it past the first round. And sure enough, he ended up with the least amount of homers of anybody. Um, yeah, wasn't great, but I think he enjoyed the experience. I don't think it'll be his last home run derby. It certainly won't be his last All-Star game. So I'm excited to see him bounce back when that time comes in the future.
For sure, for sure. And I'll tell you, I told you last week that that'd be really cool with Teoscar Hernandez winning. If it wasn't going to be Gunner, I would like Teoscar Hernandez to win. He won it by just a few feet. Bobby Witt Jr. just missed that home run. I also said I didn't want Bobby Witt Jr. to win just because it's Gunner. You said that you can separate during the home run derby. If Bobby Witt Jr. won it, you would be okay with it. And that's going to lead us into a little bit earlier than planned, but your soft toss segment. Because I look at Bobby Witt Jr. and Gunnar Henderson the same way that I looked at Joe Flacco and Matt Ryan. It's a little bit different because Gunnar was the first pick in the second round of the same draft, and Bobby Witt Jr. was the second pick of the first round, kind of a little mirrored thing going on there. But what I look at is these are two big time shortstops in the American League. It was a battle between the two of them for who's going to start the All-Star game. Who's the best shortstop in the AL? Are these two MVP candidates? We know one for sure is, and if the Royals were doing a little bit better, Bobby Witt probably is. He still might be. But I looked at Joe Flacco and Matt Ryan as the two first round quarterbacks in 2008. And anytime that Flacco did something that Matt Ryan couldn't do, like win a Super Bowl, I was so pumped up about it. And I always wanted Flacco to be better than Matt Ryan. I'm always going to want Gunnar Henderson to be better than Bobby Witt Jr. But Bobby Witt Jr. is an exceptional talent. And why do we have to pit these two guys against each other, Ryan?
Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. I mean, I get it. I am right on board with you with the Flacco and Matt Ryan thing. I was the same exact way. Um, it what sparked this idea for soft toss was seeing, because Gunnar had a 4-hit game last night. Bobby Witt, I don't know what his, at bats and hits were, but I know he homered last night. And there was, some discourse on social media, Orioles and Royals fans going back and forth. Gunner's the best shortstop in the league and it's not even close. Bobby Witt Jr. is the best shortstop in the league and it's not even close. Joe Flacco and Matt Ryan were both top 10 to 15 quarterbacks for most of their careers. Here we're talking about two generational talents
Mm-hmm.
in Gunnar Henderson and Bobby Witt Jr. And I get wanting Gunnar to be on top. And I do think that Gunnar is the better player, but I don't think it's as much of a foregone conclusion as a lot of Orioles fans think. And I'd have a little bit more love for Bobby Witt Jr. if he wasn't on the Royals. And until the Orioles make it to a World Series, I'm gonna have a sour taste in my mouth every time the Kansas City Royals come up in conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But man, Bobby Witt Jr. is just a ton of fun. He's excellent offensively, he's excellent defensively. For me, it's less of a competition between Witt and Gunner, and it's almost more of a competition between Witt and Adley Rutschman. I know they play different positions, but they were the top two players in that draft. The Orioles could have taken Bobby Witt if they wanted to. I know they were interested in him. I know that it wasn't an easy decision for Elias and his camp to go with Rutschman. I know, from people that were involved that they were, heavily considering Bobby Witt, and we're talking with his agent, up to draft time. Um, and I don't want to pit those two against each other either, because they play different positions, but at the same time, being the top two picks in the draft, it kind of creates a little bit more competition. Like, did the Orioles make the right call with Adley, or should they have gone with Witt? Now, when you look at the full draft, the Orioles got a shortstop who is right up there with Bobby Witt Jr. So I think the Orioles played the game perfectly. They got their, superstar shortstop and a superstar catcher. I just feel like we need to stop trying to pit these guys against each other when, as baseball fans, we should just appreciate what they both bring to the table. We're not exactly rivals. It'd be different if Bobby Witt was on the Blue Jays or the Red Sox and, they were in the same division. Then I'd be like, yeah, talk all the crap on him you want. But man, he's fun to watch. And
Yeah.
that's really all I wanted to say. I love Gunnar to death. Like I said, I do think he's, has a little bit of an edge over Bobby Witt Jr., but I think we need to stop, going back and forth with Royals fans and just try to enjoy these guys for what they are, which is superstar players who are, on the fast track to become Hall of Famers if they stay healthy.
So I like Bobby Witt. I like the player. He's crazy fast, like crazy. I think he's got the top sprint speed in all of baseball.
If he's not the top, he's top 3 easily.
Yeah, he is extremely fast. He hits for power, not the same power as Gunnar, but he hits for power. He hits for average. Now he plays great defense. He plays for an AL Central team, which I know that the Orioles have struggled with the teams in the Central this year in both leagues, but it's not like you said, he's not in the AL East, kicking the Orioles door down 13 times a year. And here's an interesting question. We know that the Orioles love up the middle defenders, up the middle players, primarily shortstops. We've seen it in every draft. If the Orioles go Bobby Witt Jr. #1 overall, do they still take Gunnar with the first pick in the second round? Do they still take Jordan Westburg with the competitive balance pick in 2020? Do they still take Jackson Holliday with the first overall pick in 2022? It is an interesting thing where if they did take Bobby Witt Jr., maybe the entire course of the Orioles' future is completely rattled by that. And that doesn't mean that it's rattled for the worse, doesn't mean it's rattled for the better, but maybe all the players that we've completely fallen in love with over the last few years, maybe it's not the same thing anymore. Who's your catcher at that point? Is Blake Hunt now your catcher? Did the Orioles draft Henry Davis? Or it's very interesting to think about what could have been or would have been if the Orioles had taken Witt instead of Rutschman.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I firmly believe that major league teams don't draft for positional need, and we've seen that in the Elias era where he hasn't drafted a pitcher in the first round, despite the fact that, clearly our farm system has way more hitting depth already than it does pitching depth. But I think they go with the best guy on their board. So would taking Bobby Witt have altered the drafts? I don't think so. But it's entirely possible that, had Bobby Witt established him, if it was Bobby Witt and Jordan Westburg up the middle that we knew were going to be our guys, maybe they don't take Holiday. Maybe they take a Drew Jones or someone else, Elijah Green, who was talked about in those first 5 picks. So it's interesting to think about. I'm not necessarily sure that it would be different, but I'm glad we have Adley. That's for sure. Bobby Witt would be awesome, but to be able to draft a generational catcher 1 spot ahead of Bobby Witt and then still get a generational shortstop, it's so hard to complain. And
well
I
done.
think they've absolutely nailed their drafts the last 5 years, and what a time, man. We've come a long way.
Now let me ask you this, because the Orioles' 3rd pick in that 2019 draft, Michael Elias's first draft, is Kyle Stowers. Kyle Stowers is currently hitting .306 with I believe it's a 797 OPS plus, or I'm sorry, OPS. And he was the 3rd pick in that 2019 draft. Colton Cowser, just 2 years later, the 5th overall pick by the Orioles in the first round of the 2022 and 2021 draft. Should Colton Cowser be ceding some time now to Kyle Stowers? Would Kyle Stowers, and let me rephrase that. Do you think if Kyle Stowers were playing as much as Colton Cowser were playing, that he'd be putting up better overall numbers than Colton Cowser right now?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I think so. I think that, it's been a 3+ month slump with the exception of that 1 3-homer week for Colton Cowser. So it's hard to look at a guy like Stowers who has done nothing but produce in AAA and has been good when in limited opportunities in the majors. It's I can't consciously look at that and say that Stowers would not put up better numbers than Cowser. Because I just don't believe that to be true at this point. I think, Cowser's your backup center fielder. You don't have any other outfielders on this roster who play center field naturally. So I don't necessarily think that Cowser should be ceding time to Stowers, but I do think, Stowers should be starting more than once or twice a week. And then when Kjerstad is back, same deal, right? So, it's interesting to think about. We've got a lot of outfielders who we know are capable of production, and right now one of the ones getting the most playing time has not been producing for 3+ months. So, it'll be interesting to see how they play it. They're all left-handed hitting outfielders with the exception of Austin Hayes. A lot of ways this could go. And there's one comment that when we get to the interaction portion of the show later, I'll expand on it a little bit. But yeah, it's interesting to think about. Now, if I can ask one more follow-up question there.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a lot of question marks with these draft classes. And
Sure.
we have Stowers thrown in with Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson, which on paper, getting those two guys is hard to beat, right? Is there any world in which you can see the 2019 draft, or I'm sorry, the 2020 draft, proving in the long run to be better than the previous draft when you look at Heston Kjerstad, Jordan Westberg, who's already an all-star, and Kobe Mayo, who looks like he looks the part? Do you think there's any chance that draft class ever overtakes the Adley, Gunnar, Stowers draft?
That one's really tough because you also have to remember that Joey Ortiz was taken in that 2019 draft. And Joey Ortiz got you Corbin Burns, and he was looking like he could be Rookie of the Year in the National League until he got hurt recently.
That's very true.
I think he was Player of the Month in June for the National League. No, I think he had a Player of the Week. He was not, because Bryce Harper was Player of the Month, but he may have been Rookie of the Month.
He had a Rookie of the Month in May or June.
May or June, yeah. So, and there was only 5 picks in the 2020 draft. You had Kjerstad, you had Westberg, then you had Hudson Haskin, who a lot of people forget about, but he's playing center field in AAA right now. Mm-hmm. Then you had Kobe Mayo and Carter Baumler. If Carter Baumler becomes anything, if Carter Baumler comes out, he stops getting hurt and he pitches. I mean, he called himself a more athletic Zach Greinke, and nobody said, no, that's off base. And anytime he's pitched, he's looked the part. He just can't seem to stay healthy. Yeah. And that's a big question mark right there. Is Jordan Westberg ever going to be a superstar? Right? Is Heston Kjerstad ever going to be a superstar? Right? You talk about Gunnar Henderson as a top 5 player in the game, not just a top 5 shortstop. He's a top 5 player. There's an argument he's the best shortstop in baseball, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how this whole conversation started, right? Adley Rutschman is widely considered, because of his age and his ability, he's widely considered the best catcher in baseball. JT Realmuto, Sean Murphy when he's healthy, Will Smith, they're up there also. But Adley's considered the top catcher in baseball. I just don't think that you can. I don't think there can be an argument there. And the reason I say that is because that 2019 Orioles draft is going to be held in the same regard as the 1996 Ravens draft. Yeah. The Orioles potentially got 2 Hall of Famers in the first round of that draft. Now, Adley's got to put up some big numbers over a shorter period of time because he's a catcher. He made his debut when he was already pushing 25 years old. He's probably got a 10, maybe 12-year career ahead of him if he doesn't make the transition to either a full-time DH or a first baseman. He's got some work to do, but you potentially got 2 Hall of Famers to that draft, and I don't think you're going to be able to say that about. I think you'll see 2 O's Hall of Famers if Heston Kjerstad and Jordan Westburg play a bulk of their career here, but to hold them in the same light as 2019, I mean that's 2 special players with the first 2 picks of the Mike Elias regime.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I will fully admit that it is kind of a ridiculous question to bring up, considering how good Gunnar and Adley are, especially when you look at the other people that play their positions across baseball. But isn't it fun that we can at least kind of pose that question?
What's even more ridiculous, and look, we haven't seen enough of a sample size from Heston Kjerstad yet to be able to make this statement definitively, but how much more ridiculous is it that the Orioles drafts in 2019, 2020, 2021 got them legitimate big league players? We see teams miss so many times with first round, second round, third round picks, and the Orioles have not missed. They have not missed. You look at their first 4 first and second round picks, their first 4. Well, because Kyle Stowers is actually technically a second round pick. Jordan Westburg was technically a first round pick. But you look at their like, this guy is the first pick in the first round. This guy's the first pick in the second round. Like, their first 5 picks are on a big league roster, big time contributors, and 3 of them are all-stars. You know, what the Orioles have done with their draft, how they've hit so many times, is one of the most impressive things about the entire rebuild. How well they drafted and how many times they hit on these players. That's the most ridiculous thing about the whole thing.
For sure. And you look at those drafts, and it's too early, I think, to judge the Enrique Bradfield draft, but you look at those first round picks. As of now, the worst one is probably Colton Cowser, and he might be on track to be a top 3 rookie of the year finisher this year.
He's going to hit 20 plus home runs.
Yeah. So, like, it's remarkable how consistent they've been at drafting top tier talent. It's awesome.
Yep. Yeah. It's been really cool. And, we're going to get into the draft that they just had on Sunday here. We're only going to talk about their first round pick. But before we do that, if you missed anything from Glenn Clark Radio this week, including conversations with Ben McDonald, North Carolina baseball coach Scott Forbes talking Vance Honeycutt, Monte Leach celebrating the life of Jacoby Jones, and legendary former Maryland coach Ralph Friedgen, find all of those chats and more in the Glenn Clark Radio Week in Review feature right now at PressBoxOnline.com. And you can watch or listen at GCR. Start that over. You can watch or listen to GCR every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. from PressBoxOnline.com/radio or right here on Facebook and YouTube. Also wanted to quick shout out. Baltimore lost a big-time sports hero in this community last weekend when it was announced that Jacoby Jones passed away at the young age of 40. I mean, I'm going to be 40 in less than 2 months. And, it's even closer to home because, like, he and I were born the same year. He was a Ravens, legend when it comes to what he did in that 2012 postseason. Gone way too soon. We do not know the cause of death yet. I suppose we probably won't know that for a few more weeks. But thoughts and prayers to Jacoby Jones's family. That family and the Baltimore community lost a true hero in Jacoby Jones, a true sports hero in Jacoby Jones. So thoughts and prayers out to his family and to the Ravens organization.
Yeah, R.I.P. Jacoby, of course. Just. He was never the best player on the team, but man, if he didn't create a spark and some extremely memorable moments for this Ravens team. I was talking to a friend of mine who knew Jacoby, and he told me that Jacoby was telling him a little bit of a story about the Mile High Miracle, how it was 3rd and 3 in the huddle in Denver, and Jacoby supposedly said in the huddle to the rest of the guys, he was like, I'm the coldest I've ever been. I don't care if we win or lose this game. Let's get this play over with and get off the field. And then he catches a 70-yard touchdown pass from Joe Flacco to tie the game. And it kind of makes that story a little bit better, just knowing that, he was so uncomfortable. He had no interest in being there. And then
Mhm.
sure enough, he it's maybe the most memorable play in Ravens history. I mean,
It's arguably the most important play in the history of
yeah.
the franchise.
Yeah, and if that, I mean, it speaks to, what Jacoby brought to this team, how, even if he, you know, I don't wanna say didn't wanna be on the field, but, like, he was freezing his behind off and still was able to come up with that play, and you can kinda see his reaction in the end zone, like, he catches the ball, Raheem Moore falls down, Alex Verdugo style, and then, Jacoby catches it, wanders into the end zone, and he kinda looked around like, was that real?"
There's no flags.
And that's how we all thought too. It was like, did that
Mhm.
really just happen? Yeah, man, a true Baltimore legend. I think they should put him in the Ring of Honor. Um, a big loss for this city.
Absolutely. So again, thoughts and prayers out to the Ravens organization and the family and friends of Jacoby Jones. We lost a real one this time last week. Draft on Sunday. The Orioles took UNC outfielder Vance Honeycutt with his 22nd overall pick. He set UNC freshman records in 2022 with 25 home runs and 29 stolen bases, 28 home runs in 2024, a school record for a single season, and 65 career home runs are also a school record. We're going to go back to what we said last week. Again, Carlos Colazo from Baseball America said Honeycutt falling to them. Perhaps his collection of tools, athleticism, and defensive profile is too good to pass up. Baltimore's hitting development might be a dream scenario for Honeycutt as well. MLB.com had said that Honeycutt comes with at least plus tools across the board, with one notable exception, his bat. He carried a 30% strikeout rate as a freshman, cut it to 20% as a sophomore when he wasn't nearly as productive, and has seen it shoot back up to 28% as a junior. He has a decent right-handed swing, but needs to refine his pull-heavy approach, do a better job of making in-zone contact, and cut down on his chases. And then on Glenn Clark Radio yesterday, University of North Carolina head baseball coach Scott Forbes said he always thought it was a bigger risk not to take Honeycutt than to take him because he could play a big league center field today. He went on to say he's extremely coachable, actually worked in the offseason with the Holidays and Matt Holliday. He's open to everything, and he's a coach on the field too. He'll tell you what he sees, and he'll be the first to own a mistake. I remember we were just talking about this, Ryan, in 2020 when the Orioles took Jordan Westburg. I think it was 31st overall. It was a competitive balance round A pick. And they said so he was technically a first round pick, and they were like, look, he's gonna play good defense. He could stick at shortstop, but is his bat gonna play at the big league level? And his bat plays at the big league level. I just remember that's the first thing that went through my head when they said this about Honeycutt. Yeah, the strikeouts alarm you, but he played wide receiver in college. That's why he went to college. He could have been drafted out of high school. He decided to go to college and forego going into the major league draft because he wanted to play wide receiver in college. A guy that's that athletic, I think he's got a 70 grade speed and 70 grade fielding tool. He's got that kind of power. Guys with power strike out a lot. They just do. Aaron Judge will strike out 180, 190 times this year, right? The guys with power just strike out. If you can have that guy and he can combat Baltimore out there in left field, I'm really excited for this pick. Like, really excited for this pick because the Orioles, I look at it and it says, to me, we don't know if Enrique Bradfield is ever going to be an everyday player. I don't think they drafted because of that, but I think it's a contingency if that is the case with Bradfield, because I don't think Mullins is here after next year, if he's even here next year at all. And I think that the Orioles now know that they have an answer for center field when Mullins is gone. To me, that's what screams to me about this pick.
Yeah, I like the pick a lot. I think one thing that a lot of people don't fully grasp is that there's two different hit tools, right? There's your ability to hit, and then there's power. Those are two separate tools. Honeycutt's got the power. He's got a
Mm-hmm.
40 grade hit tool, which is low. Now, you can live with strikeouts, right? You mentioned Aaron Judge. Mike Trout led the league in strikeouts when he won his first MVP award. Good hitters still strike out a lot sometimes. It happens, right? You can live with that. You compared him a little bit to Westberg in the 2019 or the 2020 draft. I look at Heston Kjerstad, and Kjerstad was taken as an outfielder with a second overall pick, and he had a 45 grade hit tool, I believe. And the knock on Kjerstad was there's a lot of swing and miss, right? He's got that big leg kick. He's going to strike out. His strikeout percentage at Arkansas was about, I think it was 18.4. I was tallying it up after we drafted Honeycutt. Kjerstad struck out 18% of the time in college. Honeycutt is upwards of 25%. So there is a lot of concern there. However, when you look at the full scope of his abilities, the hit tool is really the only thing that needs refining. And if the Orioles can get that hit tool up to, a 45 or a 50 and turn him into a half decent hitter for average like they've done with Kjerstad and Kobe Mayo, another guy who had a lot of swing and miss coming out of the draft. Granted, Mayo was drafted out of high school, but still. If the Orioles can hone that hit tool and get him up to, closer to league average, you're dealing with a scary player. He's going to hit for power. He's going to play exceptional defense. He's got the speed. I don't expect him to lose too much of a step. And even if he does, he's still going to be a 60 grade runner. So I think it was a no-brainer of a pick to get a guy who has that kind of ceiling. Now, the floor is a guy who never makes it to the bigs, right? He has a low floor because of that poor hit tool. But man, if the Orioles can figure out that hit tool, this could look like another really, really, really good first-round pick.
Well, and you have to look at it like this isn't a guy that the Orioles took second overall. This is a guy they took 22nd overall. And you're going to have a lower floor. Could still be an equally high ceiling, but you're always going to have a lower floor with a guy that you take that late in the draft. And that's, we love that the Orioles are really good now and that they're going to be picking in the bottom third of the draft for years to come. But that's what happens when you get really good. You pick in the bottom third of the draft for years to come, and it becomes more of a crapshoot. If they hit, it looks amazing. Mike Trout was a bottom third of the first round pick, if I'm correct. Wasn't he?
Trout was, I think he was
26th or something like that, or 21st or something like that, right around the same area as Vance Honeycutt. Now, we're not saying that Vance Honeycutt's Mike Trout, but what if he is?
Right?
What if all of a sudden this guy comes up and he wins a Rookie of the Year by hitting 280 with 36 home runs, and 36 stolen bases? I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but to hear his coach say he can play center field in the big leagues right now, at least offensively, that the defense is there. That the power is there. If they can really work on this hit tool, and you could see this guy, I'm really interested to see how quickly he moves through the system next year. I think 2026, you kind of expect him to be on the cusp of AAA. But can they have this guy on the cusp of AAA in 2025? That's what I want to see. I want to see how quickly he moves through the system. That he's going to get a start in the Florida Complex League for about 5 games this year. And then he's going to head to Delmarva, and he'll probably spend 2 or 3 weeks there, and then maybe get a cup of coffee at Aberdeen to end the year. But I guess the whole point of me saying that is he's going to tear up the Florida Complex League. He's going to tear up Delmarva. You cannot judge anything that he does in his first 6 weeks that he's going to get in pro ball this year. You can't judge anything he does this year in pro ball, because once he gets to high A and then double A, that's when you're going to see the type of player that he really is and the type of work that this development team has done. You cannot convince me that there's a better development team in all of baseball than what the Orioles have. Maybe Tampa Bay, right? But when you look at, we just talked about how many times the Orioles have hit in the draft since Elias got here. You're not going to convince me that they can't make this guy a 250 hitter at the big league level. And if this guy can hit 250 with 30 home runs, he can play Gold Glove center field. That's an all-star. That's an all-star center fielder.
And we've talked about some of these guys, Honeycutt taken 22nd overall, which, back half of the first round doesn't have, necessarily the pedigree that a Rutschman or a Kjerstad or a Kauser has. But Jordan Westberg was the 30th overall pick. Gunnar Henderson was 42nd. Stowers was 73rd. Mayo was, I think, 105. I know he was, near the top of the 4th round. So, it doesn't necessarily mean that drafting lower equates to drafting worse, right? You have to hit on your picks, you have to develop them right. And, they could be working with, like you said, he might not be Mike Trout, but what if he is,
Yeah,
And it
right.
seems like wishful thinking for a guy who's coming out of college right now, but you never know. I have the utmost faith in the development staff. They've done an exceptional job with just about everybody so far. And if that continues, you're looking at a steal with Honeycutt at 22.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. I love the pick. I love the makeup and the athleticism there. And it's a different kind of athleticism than what you get with Enrique Bradfield. You could fill Enrique Bradfield could fill a Jared Dyson role right now at the big league level. But this is a guy who could end up hitting in the middle of your order when you talk about Vance Honeycutt. That's how good he can be. It's just a matter of if he's going to get there.
Right.
We're going to see that in the next couple of weeks, and we'll really see it next year. And that's what I'm looking forward to the most with him, is seeing him in his first full season of pro ball. Orioles are linked to Tariq Skubal and Mason Miller, amongst other pitchers, as we are now less than 2 weeks from, actually, we're about 10 days. We are 10 days from the trade deadline. Oh, man. One Tigers fan tweeted that the trade offer should start with Holiday, Mayo, and Basayo. You are out of your mother-loving mind if you think that they're getting those three guys for Tariq Skubal. They'd be lucky to get one of those players. Not lucky, but would only likely get one of those players. I saw another one, and my buddy of mine who I've known since I was a little kid, he constantly tweets to me when I see stuff like this and I react to it. These are not serious people, PV3. It's the same tweet every time. And he's 100% right. Because one Tigers fan said, this could be the Tigers lineup if they trade Skubal to the Orioles. And he had Kerstad playing left field. He had Mayo at first base, Holiday at shortstop, Westberg at third base, and Samuel Basayo behind the plate. He legitimately put out there that they were going to get Heston Kerstad, Kobe Mayo, Samuel Basayo, Jackson Holiday, and Jordan Westberg for Tariq Skubal. Since when is Tariq Skubal the second coming of Pedro Martinez? Like, this is absolutely absurd. If you get two of those five players, it is a steal. Like, you fleeced the Orioles if you get two of those players. What does a realistic trade offer for you, Ryan, look like to pick up Skubal?
Yeah, I mean, these guys either are just not knowledgeable baseball fans or they're engagement baiting. There's no one who understands the trade market and the value of players is realistically putting something like that out there where an all-star and our top four prospects are going over the Tigers. It's just not realistic. And I try not to get sucked into those because I feel like those people are just trying to seek engagement on social media.
I get sucked in, man. I'm sorry. I get sucked in.
Hey, it happens. It happens to the best of us. There's a lot of Yankee fans out there who do the same thing. I just try to ignore them. I see people quote tweeting them all the time. I'm like, this is what they want. Don't give that to them. They have the little blue check mark. They're trying to get 10 cents off of you for engagement and sharing it with your followers. It's not. I don't know. It seems disingenuous to me. But in any event, a realistic trade for a guy like Skubal, you're looking at probably one of. I don't think Holiday's going anywhere, but I think you're looking at one of Basayo, Mayo, Kerstad. Beyond that, you're probably going to have a Norby in there. You're probably going to have either a Dylan Beavers or a Judd Fabian. You're probably going to have an arm or two going back, a lower level guy like a Justin Armbruster, or maybe they go to a Chase McDermott or a Cade Povich, but it seems a little steep. Look, if Skubal gets traded, it's going to be a good return. But it's not going to be our top four prospects and an all-star good, right? So you're looking at 4 to 5 prospects, a couple of whom are going to be, probably top 100 guys, if not close to it. You're probably going to get one of the top 10 guys in there. And when I say top 10 guys, I'm talking Holiday, Basayo, and Mayo, because you'll see them in top 10s scattered all over the place. So I think that's more realistically what we're looking at. It would hurt to trade any of those guys, but you got to do it. I said on last week's show that Holiday could turn out to be a complete bust, and the Orioles would be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at it that way, you got to be willing to give up one of those top guys. Because I could say the same about Basayo. I could say the same about Mayo. I could say the same about Kerstad. They could all suck, and it wouldn't really hurt us that bad. So if you
I
have an
think
opportunity to move one of those guys for a bona fide ace and a legitimate Cy Young contender who has team control beyond this year, you do it in a heartbeat.
the only one that for me I am 100% unwilling to trade, and it's complete recency bias, is Kobe Mayo.
I'm kind of with you, man.
It's complete recency bias, but it's Kobe Mayo for me. It's I just think that he profiles that right-handed bat where Baltimore will not matter. Um, that right-handed bat in the middle of the Orioles lineup is like the thing that they're missing, right? And I think he's going to hit 40 homers at the big league level more than once, and he's hitting for average too, which we didn't expect, right? So he's hitting for average, and again, the gap between AAA and the majors is the biggest gap in all professional sports. So it's not like I think he's going to hit 303 in the minors and then come up to the majors and hit 280. He might hit 250. He might hit 240. But with that kind of power, that he hits doubles in addition to the home runs. I am not, and when I say 240, I mean like this year. I don't mean for his career. I think he'll end up being maybe a 270 hitter for his career. I'm just not really willing to part with Mayo. And we'll get into who we would be the most willing to trade here in just a moment. But Randall, speaking to your own heart, Ryan, he says Santander should be a trade chip for pitching. Don't see the O's re-signing him. Are you willing to part with Santander? Are the O's willing to part with Santander? I don't know if they're going to re-sign him or not. What I do believe for damn sure is that they're not trading him.
Yeah, I've been on the trade Tony train for several years, and it's largely because he's a 3-4-5 hitter who doesn't get on base a ton.
Mm-hmm.
But man, you look at what he's been able to do this year. The Orioles are competing for a division title. They want to make a deep playoff run. You're not trading a guy who's top 5 in the league in homers. You simply are not doing it. I understand that the Orioles, it's probably more likely than not that they are not bringing him back beyond this year. They'll give him the qualifying offer. He'll probably turn it down and hit the market. And maybe they do give him a contract, but I don't know, man. Look, I'm not trading. If the Orioles were like a middling team, then sure, right? You're not for a team. I mean, look, we talked about the offensive struggles at the bottom of the lineup. How Kowser hasn't been doing it, Mullins hasn't been doing it, Austin Hayes, with the exception of the last month or so, hasn't really been doing it either. You're not moving your best hitting outfielder. You're just not. And look,
Yeah.
maybe Kyle Stowers would be a perfectly adequate replacement. Maybe Heston Kjerstad would be a perfectly adequate replacement. But what if they're not? You're likely not replacing a guy who's on track to finish the season with 40+ homers, who was just an all-star. Let him ride out the contract. If he walks and we get nothing but a compensatory draft pick for him, I can live with that. But I'm not moving that bat in the middle of a playoff hunt.
Yeah, I'm not moving him either. And you also have to think about what he means to the clubhouse. They love him. He's got that infectious personality. Like the fans love him. I wouldn't be surprised to see him extended after this year. I don't think he will be. I'm more in line with you that they're going to offer him a qualifying offer, and then he's going to test free agency anyway. But I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that he's just gone next year. And I think it is a foregone conclusion that he is with the Orioles through the very end of the season. He's going to be here for the playoff run. Now, we also mentioned Mason Miller, that the Orioles have reached out to the Athletics regarding Mason Miller. To get both Skubal and Miller, one, it would be maybe the most exciting trade deadline in the Orioles history. But is there any way that the Orioles do that and their farm system comes out the other side intact?
Yeah.
And when I say intact, obviously you're going to lose a good bit of your prospects, but is there any chance that farm system comes out the other side not completely burned to the ground?
Yeah. We've seen what this developmental staff has been able to churn out. It is top prospect after top prospect. And it's guys that we didn't necessarily expect to be top prospects, right? Um, Basayo, I believe, I could be wrong, but I think Basayo was in the same international class as Michael Hernandez. And
Mm-hmm.
Hernandez was supposed to be the blue chip
He
prospect.
got more money.
Yeah, he got more money, got the higher signing bonus. And where's he, right? He hasn't been able to stay healthy. He hasn't been able to produce when he is healthy. And Basayo's a top 10 prospect, right? Kobe Mayo was a guy who was a fourth round pick. Granted, he kind of had first round talent, and the question was his signability, which is why we were able to take him in the fourth round. And luckily, we were able to sign him. But it's another guy who, wasn't really expected to be a top 25 prospect, and he is. Heston Kjerstad, another guy who, missed a ton of time with myocarditis, didn't get any real gameplay for the first couple of years of his professional career. And now he's, a top 20 prospect and, making an impact on the major league team. I think that you can afford to trade a lot of these top tier prospects because of what we've seen the developmental staff do. They
Mm-hmm.
could lose Basayo, Holiday, and Mayo, and they're probably, give them a couple years, they're probably going to have a top 5 or 10 farm system again.
Yeah.
They've consistently been able to churn out these guys. And look, if you can upgrade, it's hard not to prospect hug when we have so many guys that we love and we think are future studs. But the fact of the matter is we don't know for sure how any of them are going to perform in the major leagues. So if
It's
you
a
can
fact.
move them for legitimate major leaguers who have proven themselves and are going to help you make a deep playoff run, you do it.
Yeah. It's a fact that we have no facts, right? Daniel Pitt says, which prospects would you make untouchable in the trade for a starter at the deadline? Would you make them all available for a top of the rotation starter? I really don't want to trade a top prospect for a rental. The Eduardo Rodriguez for Andrew Miller trade in 2014 still hurts me. That trade I would do 100 times out of 100.
Yep.
Eduardo Rodriguez had like three solid years. He's not due. I think he's hurt. He signed with. He got traded to Arizona, or he either traded or signed. I think he signed.
I think he signed there. Yeah.
Because he opted out and he hasn't pitched like all year. He had one good year with Detroit, and then had the mental health issues last year, and I'm sorry, the year before last year. That trade, it hurt me at the time until I saw what Andrew Miller did, and I would do that trade 100 times out of 100. For me, Mayo's untouchable. Mayo is untouchable. Holiday is the next one in that is on that next tier where he's. I mean, it would have to be a 1-for-1 for me to be okay with Holiday going for Tariq Skubal. It would have to be a 1-for-1. Basayo, I'm not making him untouchable. He's 19 years old. He's blocked at catcher. They haven't really transitioned him to first base at all. He's already dealt with a couple of injuries in his career. He's huge for a 19-year-old. He's huge for a human being, but especially for a 19-year-old. I'm not making Mayo just because I think that he can come up and hit fourth for the Orioles right now. I'm not making anybody but him untouchable, but it would have to be 1-for-1 with Holiday. I otherwise, no, I'm not doing that. Your thoughts, Ryan? Are any of these guys untouchable for you?
No, none of them. Mayo is the closest thing for me. I'm with you there. I don't want to trade Mayo, but if I'm offered Skubal for Mayo straight up, it's hard not to pull the trigger on that. I understand the Orioles could use a good, powerful right-handed bat. That could be what their lineup is missing right now, but the rotation's a bigger concern, and the offense has been fine without Mayo. So I'm absolutely doing that. I'm with you 100% on the Eduardo Rodriguez trade. Andrew Miller was exactly what that bullpen needed. He was a massive help down the stretch, gave us a better shot to win the World Series that year. Granted, it didn't happen, but that's baseball. Only one team out of 30 comes out on top at the end of the season. Everyone else goes home disappointed. So, yeah, I'm absolutely making that trade. Look, I'm not saying I would be thrilled to trade Mayo for Skubal, right? I wouldn't be thrilled to trade Holiday for Skubal. But you're getting, like we said, a Cy Young contender with multiple years of control for a prospect. And that's what they are, prospects. So with that in mind, no one is untouchable for me. However, we've come a long way since Michael Givens was labeled as an untouchable back in 2015 under
Oh
the Dan
man.
Duquette regime.
Yeah.
We have come a long way where we're talking about, are we willing to trade the number one overall prospect in baseball? Um, it's great. It's exciting. But yeah,
It
no
is.
one's untouchable for me right now.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what they're going to do. They cannot have a deadline like they had last year, where in the 11th hour they get one middling starting pitcher. They've got to get an ace. And they've got to get a legit bullpen arm. They've got to make at least 2 deals happen, or maybe one deal that gets them both. But they've got to do something. I believe that they will. They are right on the cusp of being World Series favorites again. Even after 4 injuries to their starting rotation, they're that close. So let's go out and get something done. You need to go out and pick up the latest edition of Press Box, which is available now. On the cover, Maryland Governor Wes Moore sits down with Press Box to discuss the sports topics significant to his administration, including the stadium and grounds lease for the Orioles, the future of horse racing in the state, and much more. Also, this is our annual travel issue with information about sports tourism opportunities throughout the state that you and your family can take advantage of this summer. You can find the new Press Box all throughout the region, including at 60 Royal Farm stores, Chicken Palooza, and read it all at PressBoxOnline.com. Our AL East wrap up. Garrett Cole delivered a second consecutive quality start while Zach Eflin surrendered 5 runs in as many innings. Brandon Lau solo homer was the only scoring the Rays offense could muster as they went 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position. 4 hits from Juan Soto and 3 RBI from Anthony Volpe led the Yankees offense as they took the opener in Tampa 6-1. The Blue Jays got a pair of 2-run homers from George Springer and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., but it wasn't enough as the Tigers had their own pair of 2-run shots, plus another run off Jays starter Chris Bassett. The Tigers remain the hottest team in the AL as they take the first of 3 in Toronto, 5-4. And finally, Nick Pivetta was great, but the Red Sox bullpen was not. A Jarren Duran solo homer was the only run until the bottom of the 8th when Red Sox reliever Brennan Bernardino intentionally walked Will Smith to load the bases for future Hall of Famer first baseman Freddie Freeman to blast a go-ahead grand slam. Dodgers take the first game of that series 4-1. Somebody tweeted this out. Is there any better feeling in the world, do you think, than watching the guy in front of you get walked to load the bases and then you hit a grand slam?
No, there can't be. It's
Like,
just sweet redemption. Someone did that for the Orioles a year or two ago. I don't remember exactly who it was.
I think it was Adley.
Was it
I
Adley?
think I think it was this year. I think that they walked, or maybe they walked Adley to load the bases, and somebody hit a grand slam. But I remember what you're talking about. I feel like it was this year, where they
Yeah.
walked the guy. Adley came up and hit a grand slam. Where they walked Adley, and maybe it was Mountcastle that came up. I can't remember, but it may have been that game against the Athletics last year where Mountcastle hit the grand slam.
It might have been. I don't know. I'll do some digging and try to find it. It'll take me too long to do it right now, but I'll get back to you on that.
I bet that I could find it. You know what? You do today's game preview, and I bet I could find it.
Okay. Grayson Rodriguez, 11-4 with a 3.88 ERA this year. He will take the hill for the Orioles this afternoon. Grayson took the loss last Saturday, allowing 6 runs on 8 hits in 5 innings pitched. He walked 1 and struck out 7. The last time Rodriguez faced the Rangers was in Game 2 of the ALDS last season when the Orioles staked him to a 2-0 first inning lead, which he couldn't hold, allowing 5 runs on 6 hits in an inning and 2/3, walking 4 and striking out 2 in an eventual 11-8 loss. That was a lot of numbers. Overall, Rodriguez has faced Texas 3 times, including the playoffs, and he is 0-2 with a 13.5 ERA as he has allowed 15 earned runs in 10 innings pitched. The Rangers will counter with Max Scherzer, who is 1-2 with a 2.96 ERA and a 0.99 whip in 5 starts, covering 27 and a third innings this season. In Scherzer's last start before the All-Star break, he allowed 1 run on 4 hits in just 4 innings pitched against Houston, striking out 6 and walking 1. Scherzer faced the Orioles in his second start of the season back on June 28th and was the hard luck loser, allowing 2 runs on 4 hits in 5 and a third innings pitched. I believe Kowser had one of his 3 homers that week against Scherzer. So, Paul,
Oh, he
what do we
did.
think? What do we think the Orioles lineup is going to look like today? I've got it pretty similar to last night. Go ahead.
Before you do it, I found it. It was April 11th, 2023, against the Athletics, 7-7, bottom of the seventh inning. Austin Hayes singled. Gunnar Henderson scored. So that it was Hayes at second base on the throw home, Mateo to third base. Adley Rutschman intentionally walked, and then Ryan Mountcastle grand slam. Found it while you were doing today's preview.
Did you go straight to that game, or did you look at like a home run log or something?
No, I went straight to that game.
Yeah, that's a good call. And now that you say it, I do remember because I was sitting in the upper deck behind the plate. I had just met up with my cousin who went to the
That's
game
where
by
I
himself
was
that night. Yeah,
upper deck behind the plate. It was in section 338.
Damn, I was close. I don't know what section, but I went to sit with my cousin and that grand slam was absolutely
It was a bomb.
clutch. That was, I think that hit the concourse, not the concourse, but the walkway behind the first section of seats in left field.
I was in a row all by myself, and I'll never forget it because I was in the row by myself. While I was there, I just wanted to go to that game, so I went. And also because Grayson Rodriguez started that game. He gave up 6 runs in 5 innings, but that was a game Brian Baker came in and gave up a 3-run homer. Grayson should have only allowed 3 runs. There was a family behind me, and the mother was teaching the daughter about baseball the whole time. The daughter was like 4, maybe 5 years old, and she's asking all these questions, and the mom was teaching the daughter. And I actually texted my wife about it and how sweet I thought it was. And it was Ryan Mouse. They walked Rutschman, and I tweeted out, "You're playing a dangerous game walking Rutschman to get to maybe the hottest hitter in the Orioles lineup right now." And then he hit a grand slam. That was an absolute tank shot. Yeah. Absolute bomb.
I just remember off the bat, just looking over at my cousin, my jaw was just dropped. I was like, good Lord, that was smoked.
He also hit a sac fly to the wall in center field in that game. I think he was that close.
He had the 2 homers and then the deep sac fly. I do remember that. So, Paul, what do we think the lineup is going to look like today? I've got Cowser in there in center field. Like I said, he homered off of Scherzer in his last opportunity. I've got Gunnar at short, Adley at catcher, Santander in right, Ryan O'Hearn at DH. That's the same top 4 that we saw last night. Westberg at second base, batting 5th. Colton Cowser batting 6th in center field. Mountcastle at first, batting 7th. I got Kyle Stowers getting a start in left, and then Ramon Arias playing third base, batting 9th. Your thoughts?
I think it's accurate. I think it's an accurate lineup. The only thing that I could potentially seeing them do, just to kind of switch things up and maybe get these guys going a little bit, is flip-flopping Rutschman and Westberg. I think that could, I don't think they're going to do it, but if they wanted to shake it up, I could see Brandon Hyde doing that, flip-flopping them. Because I was thinking earlier, maybe it's time to have Rutschman not hit second and see if we can get somebody else up there to be a little bit more productive. Not that Rutschman hasn't been productive, but he is in a pretty long the home run last night notwithstanding. I could see them doing something like that, but I think it's more than likely the exact lineup that you posted right now. I have no changes to make for that.
Yeah, I could see them. I think I could see them swapping Westberg and Rutschman at some point in the future. I don't think today's the day that they would do that, considering how good the top 3 and 4 in the lineup was last night. I don't think you break that up. Yeah, I could be wrong. Maybe you want to spread it throughout the lineup a little bit. Maybe.
Or maybe switch Westberg and Cowser. Maybe have Mountcastle hit 6, Westberg hit 7, and Cowser hit 5th.
Yeah, it could
be. Especially because Cowser homered last night, and he homered off Scherzer the last time they faced him. I could see them doing that. But I think that the players and the positions, and for the most part, the order is correct, and I have no changes to make. So,
cool.
All right. What's on tap? The O's will wrap up their series with the Rangers on Sunday afternoon with first pitch slated for 2:35 Eastern Standard Time. It'll be Dean Kramer for the Birds looking to gain some momentum after his last 2 outings produced less than desirable results. Kramer is 4-5 with a 4.38 ERA and 1.19 WHIP this season. Veteran Andrew Heaney takes the hill for the Rangers in the series finale, coming in at 3-10, but with a 3.79 ERA on the year. Heaney took the loss in his last start, allowing 2 runs on 5 hits and 5 innings pitched on July 12th versus Houston. However, in his last outing versus the Orioles, Heaney picked up the lone Rangers win of the 4-game series in front of a national audience on Sunday Night Baseball, allowing, I think it was 1 earned. Was it 2 earned runs? Allowing 2 earned runs on 5 hits while walking none and striking out 10 in 7 dazzling innings on June 30th. The O's then have Monday off to travel to Miami, where they begin a 3-game series with the Marlins before returning home next week for a series with the Padres. Take to Rake today is brought to you by County Sports Zone. While high school sports season has come to an end for this year, County Sports Zone will be providing great high school sports content all summer long. For the latest in coaching changes, football previews, and more, check out countysports.zone, proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. Football season is right around the corner. Before you know it, we're going to be we're legitimately, I think, 5 weeks away from the start of college football. And
wow, yeah,
probably 6 weeks. 6 weeks from the start of college football. It's probably 6 weeks from today. And I don't know, there's something about it. Like, I'm not a big college football guy, but there's something about that first Saturday with college football that just kind of gets you amped up. And I don't know. The Ravens veterans all reported to camp today. The first team workout is tomorrow. Football season is legitimately here. Now, I don't really give two flying S's about it until baseball season is over. I'll watch the Ravens and be hyped for the Ravens when the season starts, but I won't really care as much until the Orioles season is over and done with. Which is that's why I love when both teams are good and both teams just still loving baseball. How many times, Ryan, in our lifetimes has it been July and you're oh man, thank God football's here?
Almost every year of my life.
Almost every year of my entire life. I'm going to be 40 years old. I think it's been 15 seasons that the Orioles even posted a winning record in my lifetime. So yeah, it's definitely exciting, but definitely exciting that we're no longer looking forward to football because baseball's been so terrible. We're looking forward to football because we like football, but baseball's here for 3 more months, and that's awesome.
Yeah, I share that sentiment. I've never been a big college football guy. I'll watch some of the big games once in a while, but I'm Orioles and Ravens till I die. But when the Orioles are good, I didn't know that Ravens veterans reported today. I didn't know that workout started tomorrow. I probably am not gonna watch any of the preseason games. It doesn't do it for me. That being said, I'm still gonna be jacked up every Sunday when the Ravens are playing. I'm gonna be excited. I'm gonna watch the regular season. But when the Orioles are good, man, you can't beat it. And there's a popular question that tends to go around social media at times where it's you have this many championships to disperse amongst your favorite teams. How are you doing it? They're all going to the Orioles for me. I love the Ravens. I'm glad I've gotten to see them win 2 Super Bowls. I would trade them both for 1 Orioles World Series win.
Oh, for sure.
And if I had 10 championships to disperse to my favorite teams over the next decade, I'm giving 11 of them to the Orioles. That's the way I'm wired.
I want to sit here. So my cousin's husband, Brandon Filler, a lot of people may know him on Twitter. If you think I'm negative, follow his Twitter account. I like Brandon a lot. Sometimes it's let's pump the brakes a little bit here, man. That's coming from me. He had retweeted or quote tweeted somebody saying, if you had 6 championships to spread amongst your favorite teams, how would you spread them out? And he said 4 to the Orioles and 2 to the Ravens. So they've each won 4 in my lifetime. And I really, really like that. But you'd be hard pressed to get me to enter a baseball season and say the Ravens are going to win a Super Bowl this year, but that means that the Orioles cannot win the World Series. You'd be hard pressed to get me to agree to that.
Yeah,
you'd be hard pressed to get me to agree to
You
that.
talk to me at the beginning of the year and say, all right, either the Orioles or the Ravens are going to win the championship this year. Which one do you want? I'm answering the Orioles every single time. Yeah, I'm sorry. I love the Ravens. I'm a huge Ravens fan. I'm going to be in front of the TV every Sunday or Monday night or whenever they're playing. I'm going to be watching. I'm going to be rooting for them. I'm going to be wearing my Lamar Jackson jersey. But I bleed orange, man.
Not your Blake jersey?
No, that one goes down to my knees. That's a game worn Blake jersey. Yeah, it's that thing's a dress on me, man. I can't wear it in good conscience.
No Ravens dress for Ryan.
Nope. It'll be in a frame soon enough.
All right. Take to Rake. Ryan, you took Adley. He went 0 for 2 in the All-Star game, 2 for 12 with 1 home run since last Saturday. I took Gunnar. 11 home runs in the home run derby. It was the least amount of home runs of anybody. Somebody, the Orioles Twitter handle tweeted out, we're still proud of you, Gunner, right after he hit the 11 home runs. And somebody responded like, no, we're not. What the F was that? and I know it was tongue in cheek. It was really funny, that response. Like, I wanted to be like, you're a jerk, but like, no, it was really, no, we're
That's
not.
funny.
What the F was that?
Comedy's comedy.
Yeah, exactly. So just the 11 home runs in the Derby. Was 0 for 2 in the All-Star game, though. We did have that protective ground out. 6 for 14 with a home run. Yeah, I won this week with Gunner, and it's a weekly thing where somebody takes Gunner and they just about win every week. So that gives me back-to-back victories and takes me from a 4-3 deficit to a 5-4 lead. With a while to go here and take Drake, but it does mean that I get to pick first. And I gotta take Tony Taters. They're going up against Scherzer. He just homered twice last night. I remember in 2020 he announced his presence with authority by hitting 2 home runs off of Max Scherzer in the game that the Orioles managed to still lose. I gotta take Tony Taters for this week. Ryan?
Yeah, I think I took Gunner a couple weeks ago and managed to lose, but I've got to get back on track, and Gunner's a top 5 player in baseball. It's a boring pick, but I got to tie the standings back up. Give me Gunner.
See, and that's what I like about this. Like, it's so obvious that one of us is going to pick Gunner every week, right? And when Zach and I would do it, and I love Take the Rake, we kind of knew that was like the obvious pick to pick like the best player on the team every other week. And so we would each like intentionally pick somebody that wasn't the best player just to switch it up a little bit. But it's like, look, it's Gunnar Henderson. He's arguably the front runner for MVP. Like, just take the guy. Just take it. Now watch next week. I'll end up taking Ruth Neto-Door's brother or something like that. Or Connor Norby because he's still playing in the minors.
Yeah. But, there's a part of me that feels like we should adjust the rules so that like you can't take a player who was taken by anybody the previous week. That way there's a little more parity where instead of us just swapping Gunner, we're swapping Gunner and Adley for like Tony Taters and Westberg or whatever. But at the same time, like it's hard not to take an MVP candidate for Take to Rake. I mean, that's the objective, right?
Okay, we can do it though. That like. I don't know. We'll have to think about it. Maybe Gunner can't be taken by either one of us 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
So like if you take him, I took him last week. You take him this week. Next week nobody can take him. Just to kind of switch things up. No matter who wins, nobody can take him. I think we could do that, but you only do it for Gunner.
Yeah, because we can also say screw it with let's just keep swapping Gunner. Like I'm fine either way. But there's a part of me that thinks it'd be a little more fun to do like limit ourselves to like outfielders for a week, and it's like one of us has to take Mullins, one of us has to take Hayes. Who's gonna have the better week?
You can't take an all-star.
Yeah,
like
all-stars are now off limits.
Well, does that mean all all-stars just from this year or former all-stars too? Because then what about Austin Hayes and Cedric Mullins and James McCann?
McCann was an all-star, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it looks like we're gonna be swapping Mateo and Arias back and forth for a while.
We're down to Ramon Arias and Jorge Mateo. That's right. All right, a little bit of.
I'm talking a little tongue in cheek. We don't have to change the rules or anything, but there's a part of me that misses the days where it's like, is it going to be Rio Ruiz or Hanser Alberto who has a better week? And now it's like there's a clear like top 3 or 4 guys that are going to be in the regular rotation.
Absolutely. All right, 11:30 before we even get to the comments, but we're going to try and do a little bit of rapid fire here, just because I have a call coming up in a half an hour. Daniel Pitts, what do you put the chances that the Orioles will re-sign Corbin Burns? 55. You know what? I'm going to say 51-49. that they re-sign him. I think they're going to be the front runner to re-sign him because he's already here. He's comfortable. He wants to go. He stated that the main thing is he wants to go someplace where he can win. You're not going to find a better place to win than Baltimore for the next decade, in my humble opinion, unless you want to go play for the Dodgers or the Braves. So for me, it's 51-49 that they sign him because, again, you're still competing against the rest of the league and some big money teams. Your thoughts, Ryan?
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that. I think he does really like it here. I'm sure he likes pitching in a ballpark with a cavernous left field. Um, and he said he wants to win. I don't think they re-sign him during the season. I don't think there's going to be any type of contract extension, but I could absolutely see him, favoring the Orioles even when he does hit the open market. Um, you know, I, it's hard to predict. Is he going to take the team that offers him the most money, or is it, the best chance to win? And I think even if the Orioles don't have maybe the best offer, they probably have the biggest window of contention. So yeah, I, in my, deep in my heart, I feel like he's not going to be an Oriole past this year, but I do think the Orioles make a legitimate effort to bring him back.
I think that they're going to make a legitimate effort. I think he's going to be here. But that might just be me. I really like this next comment, this next question. From a Deet, what is more likely? Grayson and Corbin getting 20 plus wins each, or Santander and Gunnar getting 40 plus homers each by the end of the year. Very obviously, it's Gunnar and Santander each hitting 40 homers. But Corbin has 10 wins now with 13 probably starts to go. Grayson has 11 wins with probably 14 starts to go, including today, right? And 10-4 for Corbin, 11-4 for Grayson. Getting them to 20 might be difficult, but you could very realistically see them each win 17 or 18 games, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Gunnar and Santander, even if they keep up just a little bit of their current pace, I think they're both going to be damn close to 40, if not over it. I think so. Yeah, to answer your question, I think the easy answer here, the obvious answer is Santander and Gunnar hitting 40 plus homers. I think we'd be lucky to see one of Grayson and Corbin get to 20 plus wins.
Yeah, it's so hard to win 20 these days in the big leagues.
I think it's possible, but I don't think it's likely. Yeah, it's fun that, again, a lot of these points that we bring up, it's fun that we're even talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes me so happy that the Orioles are good finally, man. It's just
I know, right?
It's
man, great. I'm looking at the Orioles team pitching on Baseball Reference, and then you go to the bottom there and you see Kyle Bradish. You see 2-0 with a 2.75 ERA, 12.1 strikeouts per 9 to 3.4 walks per 9, a 1.068 WHIP, which is second only to Corbin Burns. You see that, and you're just like, we're not going to see him until 2026. It hurts your soul. Like Corbin Burns, Grayson Rodriguez, and Kyle Bradish at the top of your rotation. For my money, there's not a better 1, 2, 3 punch than those three at the top of your rotation in all of baseball. And while we're at it, can we talk for 1 second about the hate that Grayson Rodriguez gets? The guy is 11-4 with a 3.88 ERA. He's had 3 starts where he blew up. He's had 12 of 17 starts, 2 earned runs or less. 13 of 17 starts, 3 earned runs or less. Another start with 4 earned runs, and then 3 starts with 5 or more runs allowed. The guy has been a dude for the Orioles, and people talk about him like he's a 4. He is it's his second season. It's his second season. I think he's got 40 starts in his big league career. It's his second year in the big leagues. And we're talking about this guy like he's a bust and like he's a number 4 in this rotation. You're going to be hard-pressed to find 5 dudes in the American League that are as consistent and as good as Grayson Rodriguez is every 5th day.
Yeah, a few blow-up starts, but other than that, he's been absolutely rock solid. When he's landing his changeup, he is one of the most disgusting pitchers in baseball. I think he's taken 2 perfect games into the 5th or 6th inning so far this year already. Yeah, Grayson's a stud, and he's going to continue to get better. We've seen a lot of young pitchers take their lumps in their young careers. Hunter Green struggled a lot and was just an all-star for the first time. Hunter Brown with Houston was expected to be a rookie of the year candidate last year and really, really struggled down the stretch, struggled to open up the year, but he's been really good lately. Young pitchers are going to struggle at times, but when Grayson is on, he's right up there with the best of the best in Major League Baseball. I don't know how you can look at his body of work and complain at all.
And when you watch what he's done this year, he's going to end this season with 17 or 18 wins and an ERA approaching 3.5. And we're talking about this guy like he's a number 4. Like, I would have no problem giving him if Corbin Burns went on this roster, I'd have no second thoughts about giving him the ball game one of a postseason series. I have that much confidence in Grayson Rodriguez. And I think when push comes to shove, that's a dude you want on the mound in a game you need to win.
Yeah.
Like I'm a big Grayson, and he's 24 years old in his second big league season. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? So somebody was like, somebody tweeted out yesterday, Grayson has been good this year, but I don't think he's been as good as the Orioles anticipated. Like, what else do you want out of him?
Yeah.
He's gonna throw what, 160 innings this year, and he missed a month. He's gonna throw 160 innings this year, like 100, maybe even 170. Like, what are we doing here?
A lot Orioles fans don't know how. Like, we don't know how to be good.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. I would have sold my soul for a Grayson Rodriguez for my entire life, dude. I barely remember. I mean, I remember a little bit, but Mike Messina was gone by the time I was, a real conscious baseball fan, right? I would have sold my soul for a Grayson Rodriguez type pitcher. And we finally have him, and he doesn't even need to be an ace because we have Corbin Burns, and yet he is an ace. Like, how are we complaining? I don't understand it.
You look at, we had somebody in here today say that Eduardo Rodriguez for Andrew Miller trade still hurts me to this day. We're pining over Eduardo Rodriguez and what he could have been here. His career ERA is 4.03. His best year, he went 19-6 with a 3.81 ERA, and he led the league in walks. In 2023, he was good, 13-9 with a 3.30 ERA. That might be, but I mean, like, 2019 was the 1 year that he went over 200 innings. He led the league in starts, but he also led the league in walks. He got Cy Young votes. The only year he got Cy Young votes. Grayson Rodriguez is on pace to be better than that this year. In my opinion, he's like, if you were just to look at it based on the projection, based on the numbers, he's right around that. I think he's going to be better than that. And we're talking about we didn't like that trade. Grayson Rodriguez in his second year is that, if not better. And we're talking about him like he's a number 4. Like, it's just like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Anyway, Randall said, I suffer with vertigo 300 days a year. It's totally debilitating. Everything is moving, dizziness, and it's difficult to stabilize yourself. Meds do little, and it really sucks. That's how I felt after I accidentally ate a pot brownie a few years back. The worst day of my life. And the guy who made the brownie, he made them quadruple the potency because he was such a huge I didn't realize I had 2 roommates. He was one of the roommates. I thought the other roommate made normal ass brownies, and it was this guy, and I ate one that was like this big.
Oh,
and
no.
the whole thing, and I thought I was going to die. And I imagine that's what vertigo feels like. Everything was bouncing around. I couldn't get anything to sit still on my vision. I was losing my mind, and like, I was also really, 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 really high. So like, it freaked me out. It was a terrible night. Not saying that it's like eating a pot brownie, but 300, man, Randall, I'm sorry you suffer from vertigo 300 days a year. Yeah, if that's what Ryan Mountcastle's going through, like, I don't know if that's what's happening. I don't think he'd be in the lineup if he was going through vertigo right now.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But at the same time, like, he was in the lineup for a big portion of last year while he was dealing with it, and then they finally bit the bullet and put him on the IL. So you never know. Hopefully it's not that, but it sucks either way.
Adit said Verdugo, Raheem moored that ball. He absolutely did. It was almost identical the way they fell.
Yeah.
Absolutely love to see that. Don C, Paul Valley, Ryan Blake, what's up, guys? I shared on Twitter. I liked on YouTube. Thank you so much. And at least we know that we are. The oops connection lost. Reconnecting is still in the middle of my screen. It's been there the whole show. But it's nice to know that we're able to be seen. And thank you, Don, for continuing to like and share. And if you're watching us, like, share, subscribe. We definitely would love the fellowship. Fellowship. Anyway, Don C, those guys needed the All-Star break. They look rejuvenated. Again, very dependent on the home run to score their runs. I saw at Orioles Factoids handle tweet out. It's the 11th time in Orioles history that they've hit 4 home runs, and they were all multi-home run homers. Multi-run homers. Sorry, thank you. Multi-run homers. So that's cool. Without those home runs, did the Orioles win that game last night? I mean, they only gave up the 1 run, but I think all of those runs scored on home runs. So it's you're wondering, what would have happened. Somebody said last week, once again, the Orioles can't score if they don't hit the home run. Gunnar had hit a 2-run homer, and he was like, they only scored because Gunnar hit the home run. I'm like, well, what if Gunnar had doubled instead? If Gunnar had doubled instead, Mountcastle drives him in, and then Mountcastle gets driven in on the base hit later in that same inning. So, okay, maybe they don't hit the home run, but they end up scoring the same amount of runs anyway. Home runs are a good thing. They are. But without them last night to the Orioles, is that game a lot closer, and are we nervous about what's going on with the offense?
Maybe a little bit, but who doesn't love home runs, right? Like, maybe there are times where, your offense is a little too reliant on them, and if the power is not coming, yeah, your offense is going to go through a little skid, and we see the Orioles do that at times. With that being said, home run is the best way to drive in runs because you're also driving in yourself. Look, Locked On Orioles had a good thread about, recent World Series winners and their reliance on the home run ball, and it's pretty comparable to what the Orioles are doing this year. So I think while it can be a hindrance at times, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing to rely on the home run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you hit more of them than anybody else in baseball, that's what's going to happen. You're going to score bulkier runs off of the home runs. Don C said, I could care less. I couldn't care less about the productivity from Gunnar in the Derby. I was okay with it because it was like he got his first at bat at 9:00 at night, and yeah. I get up at 4:30 in the morning most mornings, or at least that's when my alarm goes off. And I was like, well, that's cool. I don't have to stay up till past 11 o'clock to watch this thing go down. Like, I get to go to bed now, so I'm cool with it. Like, he had 11 home runs. I wasn't even embarrassed. It's like, that doesn't change the fact that he's still Gunnar freaking Henderson. And then what does he do right after the All-Star break? He goes 4 for 5 in his first game after the break. So, like, cool. Least amount of home runs in the first round. The things I did, like my next favorite guy to win, Teoscar Hernandez, he won. And the one thing I wanted to see happen, Pete Alonso didn't get out of the first round. And I was cool with that, too. So, overall, good home run derby.
That was great.
Yeah. Daniel Pitts, did you see Santander say after the game last night in his interview with Melanie Newman that Aaron Judge was helping him at the All-Star game with his swing to make more solid contact? Why would he do that? I didn't see that. I was at the restaurant last night when the game was being played, so I didn't see the post-game interview. But, yeah, why would he do that? I guess
Santander was probably asking him stuff. Look, yeah. It's the All-Star game. Players get together. There's camaraderie there. Players are trying to learn from each other at the All-Star game. That's like one of the biggest reasons that they, agree to go when they're selected is, I want to pick each other's brains. Paul Skeens was talking about how, he was sitting down with a bunch of, All-Stars on the National League side, picking their brains and trying to learn different things from them. Look, I understand they're division rivals, but at the end of the day, like, they're all baseball players and they want to see each other succeed. Judge just said last week that Judge said at the All-Star game in an interview that, he was asked is there a player not currently on the Yankees that you really want to play with? His answer was Gunnar Henderson. Like, Judge, look.
Take that, Anthony Volpe.
There are a lot of reasons to dislike Aaron Judge, but, like,
there's also a lot of reasons to like him.
Yeah, there are. And if he wasn't a Yankee, he'd probably be one of my favorite players. Like, but anyway, to Daniel's point, Judge wasn't trying to help the Orioles. He was trying to help a fellow baseball player.
Who asked him?
Yeah, with a little aspect of his game. I don't
I've
think it's not going to change Santander's production. It looks like it. He had 2 for 5 with 2 homers and 5.
3 for 5.
Yeah, sorry, I meant 2 homers, 5 RBIs. So it looks like it's paying dividends, but at the end of the day, it's not going to turn Anthony Santander into Aaron Judge.
He had 3 or 4 multi-home run games in the first half before talking to Judge about it. And I very seriously doubt that Judge went up to him and was like, hey, let me give you a pointer. Even though you're 5th in the majors in home runs, let me give you a pointer on how to hit more home runs. Like he probably said, man, how do you hit home runs at such a frequent pace? And I very seriously doubt what Judge would be like, because I'm 6'7", 280, a solid muscle. Like, no, he's going to say, oh yeah, man, this is how I changed my swing throughout the minors so that when I got here, I could stay here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, very seriously doubt it was anything other than that. Don C. Ryan, I've noticed recently they're giving Kobe Mayo some starts in the outfield, left and right. I assume that if called up, they would trade or DFA Arias and live with Kobe's glove at third. Did you hear that? That boo-doo-boo-doo sound?
I did not.
Okay, maybe it's just my computer gave me a notification update. I assumed that if they called up, they would trade or DFA Arias and live with Kobe's glove at third base. And then he continues to say, or would they look into platooning Kobe in the outfield? Thanks, guys. I don't want Kobe platooning anywhere. I want that dude playing. If he's going to play a full season, I want him playing 153 games out of a 162 game season with the occasional off day for rest. I want a guy like that to be in the lineup every single day. They don't want to waste his arm at first base, right? And if you can find a way to get him into the outfield, because and have Jackson Holiday playing second base, who, oh, by the way, had 2 homers and a walk last night. If they could, and played his first game at second base in over a month, if they can have Jackson Holiday at second base, Westberg at third base, and Kobe Mayo playing corner outfield, and then have O'Hearn and Mountcastle platooning at first base, I think that's what they would like to do. And then still get Mayo some starts at first base, maybe if Mountcastle is sick or injured or something like that. I think that's what they'd like to do. They want to be able to utilize that 70-grade arm for Mayo. I think ultimately he ends up being in the infield long term, but he's young, athletic, and has a cannon for an arm and a cannon for a bat. They want to utilize all of it.
Yeah, I honestly, I have nothing to add. We share the same sentiment there. I think you'd waste Mayo's arm by putting him at first base regularly. If there's no room for him at third, throw him in left, throw him in right. He's got an absolute cannon. Now, the issue with him this year has been the accuracy of his throws from third base.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's a long-term issue, then maybe he just doesn't have the arm we thought he did. If it's a yips kind of, I don't know. But
Chris Resitar was saying
in the lineup one way.
Chris Resitar was saying on Twitter a couple of months ago that they changed his arm slot when he throws from third base. I'm wondering if he was sidearm or 3/4 slot from third base, and they made him come more over the top, and he's had trouble adjusting to that.
It could be, yeah.
Don also said, Paul, great comp. The O's 2019 and the Ravens 1996, very cool. Yeah, I mean, like, to me, that's the obvious comp there. When you look at the first 2 picks in the draft, the comp is up there. Don also said, R.I.P. Jacoby, number 12. Yeah, we all miss Jacoby Jones. Randall, Honeycutt was a steal, diamond in. Oh, sorry. Honeycutt was a steal, diamond in the rough. I've really loved the Honeycutt pick. Like you said, you're picking the bottom third of the draft in the first round. You're going to get a guy with a low floor. But if he becomes a 250, 260 hitter that hits 30 plus home runs playing center field for you, that's an all-star in center field.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a ton of upside. Like we said, if the bat's going to play, if they can develop the bat into, an average hitter for contact, a little bit better approach at the plate, a little bit better discipline, then you're looking at a really good player because everything else is there. So it's just a matter of if he's going to hit.
Daniel Pitt said Vance Honeycutt has a college career K rate of 26.28%. Jordan Westberg had a college career K rate of 22.28%. So yeah, it's a similar comp both well above 20% for their K rate. We'll see if the Orioles can turn them around. Daniel also said it seems like Honeycutt is an upgrade over Bradfield in the replacement for Mullins. I think I think that's one of the, like you said, Ryan. They don't ever draft. You don't draft for need in the big league draft because you can turn players and you can have them play different positions. But I think that the Orioles now know that the future center fielder is definitively in their system.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Bradfield kind of profiles as more of a fourth outfielder. You mentioned Gerard Dyson, Terrence Gore type player. I hate to make comps to the 2014 Royals, but they had two absolute speed demons on that roster. And that's what, good teams need. You need to have, versatile guys like that off the bench. Bradfield would be comfortable anywhere in the outfield. But, maybe they think that the offensive ceiling of Honeycutt, which I agree with, is a lot higher than that of Enrique Bradfield. So, we'll
I
see
think
what
it
happens.
is too. I think that the hit tool is the same, and one guy has power and one guy doesn't. Scooble ain't worth that haul from Don C. Yeah, nobody's worth the haul that some of these delusional Tigers fans think that they're going to get for Scooble. They are legitimately talking about him like he's Shohei Ohtani. Like,
yeah,
you're not getting that haul. Randall, we got to get you off the Logan Paul Gilbert train. Cheaper to persuade Seattle out of Gilbert, Santander, Povich, Norby, and Fabian. Well, Santander's not going anywhere, and Seattle's not trading Logan Gilbert, especially when they are still in contention. They are now percentage points behind Houston for first place in the AL West after leading the division, I think by 10 games on June 19th. So it's they're not going to trade a guy. They're not out of the race by any, and they're not going to trade their best pitcher. And especially not to another team in the Orioles trying to make the playoffs. Don C., Paul and Ryan, I really want the Orioles to put their best foot forward in the resigning of Corbin. It's awesome having a true number one. Any chance of it happening? There's a chance, but he's a Scott Boras client, and he's going to test the market. That's just how it's going to be. And I think that the Orioles, if they want him, that offer is going to have to start at 8 years, $320 million. I think that's where it starts, right there. And if the Orioles are willing to go that high, I don't know that I'm willing to go that far for a guy who at the end of that contract will be in his late 30s making $40 million a year. But they definitely need to put their best foot forward and do everything in their power to re-sign Corbin Burnes without crippling the franchise.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ryan. Your thoughts? Same thing?
Yeah. We talked about that at length a little bit ago. I mean, they're definitely going to try. Whether they succeed or not is a different story.
Don also said Tony is a switch hitting power hitter. Love Tony. It's tough, man. Santander has more home runs than any switch hitter in baseball since the start of 2022. He's that dude. He's that dude. It's crazy because 2 months ago we were talking about him. Like, when is he ever going to hit again? Right. The Orioles need to get rid of him, Kowser, Mullins, and Hayes. And now it's like they can't trade him. They can't trade him. His bat's too good.
Yeah.
Man, a lot of comments today. Daniel Pitts, have you seen the people saying we go after Jack Flaherty again? There is no shot that the Orioles trade for Jack Flaherty again. He doesn't want to come back here. It was a miserable experience last year. You're not doing that again. He ain't coming back.
Not crossing that bridge again.
Adit, how would a Camilo Doval trade package look different from Mason Miller Doval? I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm very unfamiliar with him. Isn't a free agent until after 2028 and turned down an extension from the Giants already. Your thoughts, Ryan? Because I'm not even familiar with the player.
Yeah, closer for the Giants. Cutter, comparable to Emmanuel Clase. It's around 100 miles an hour. Yeah, really, really good pitcher. I haven't considered him as a trade candidate, but now that Adit brought it up, I'm gonna look into it because I do like Doval a lot. And
how about Logan Webb?
Yeah, I mean, he was a top 3 Cy Young guy last year, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's a stud, man. He just pitched in the All-Star game. He's a stud. The Giants aren't going to get close to winning that division. Their only hope is a wild card, and I think they're 7 games under 500 after getting beat by the Rockies last night. I'd be calling them. I'd be giving them a phone call.
Trade them Dylan Beavers and watch him turn into Mike Yastrzemski.
Yep, which I'm okay with because Mike Yastrzemski's not that good.
I agree.
Randall says, I'd trade for both Scott and Weathers as a package and trade for Gilbert. The Mariners aren't trading Logan Gilbert.
Randall really wants Logan Gilbert.
He's wanted him for
Gilbert's
9 months. It's not going to happen.
Logan Gilbert's a really good pitcher. The Mariners are not trading him right now. Like,
yeah, why would they do that? Why would they trade their best pitcher? Like, let's sign Julio Rodriguez for $1 billion years and $1 billion, and then trade our best pitcher. Why would they do that?
Yeah, I get why you like him. I get why you want him on the Orioles. I get it 100%. Look, if the Orioles trade for Logan Gilbert, rub it in our faces all you want. But you got to stop bringing him up because we're going to say the same thing every week. And this is an every week thing. Now, Tanner Scott and Ryan Weathers, yeah, that'd be a fun package. I'm all on board with that. Absolutely. But Gilbert's not happening, man. It's just not.
That was my nickname in college, the fun package. Don C said, Paul and Ryan, what about Max Scherzer at the deadline, all that playoff experience? I've been on the Max Scherzer train for like a month and a half. Here's the issue with that. He said that he's not waiving his no-trade clause. He thinks that the Rangers can still make a playoff push, and he does not want to be traded, and he won't approve it. So he's not now, he said that last year also with the Mets, and then he approved the trade. It could happen. If it happens, like, I am all aboard the Max Scherzer train 100%. But I have to take the man at his word for now that it won't waive that no trade. Excuse me, that no trade.
But we've seen him do a 180 on that before, so who knows?
All right. Again, this is by far our longest show. Daniel Pitts, will Camden Yards ever get another All-Star game? Every season they mention Camden Yards as selection finalists and then pick somewhere else. Pretty much every MLB player lists Camden as one of their favorite places to play. Yes. Now that John Angelos, the Angelos family, does not own the Orioles, 100% yes, the Orioles will get an All-Star game. I'm thinking 2028.
Yeah, 2027, 2028 seem like realistic possibilities. Manfred said that the renovations to Camden Yards aren't really going to impact that timeline, but I think it'd be nice to, once we get some of these renovations done, nicer scoreboard, maybe open up the concourse a little bit, revamp the left field upper reserve and, turn that into a standing bar type area. I don't know what they want to do, but it's no secret that Camden Yards could use some upgrades. And I think once we see those, we're going to be at the top of the list.
Yeah, let's get those upgrades going. And one of the ones that I think that they absolutely need to make that nobody talks about, do something with the right center field bleachers, because right field, if you're sitting in the right field side of the right field bleachers, you can't see right field. And they've got to do something to angle that off and get rid of that. Maybe if they want to make that an extension of the, when I say extension of the scoreboard, I mean like another standing room area spot, but you cannot have that bad of an obstructive view. You cannot see right field. Yeah. From some of those seats.
If you're in section 98 and you're not in the front 3 rows, you're not seeing anything down the line.
Yeah. Paul and Ryan, I know it's all about the OC, but I think the Ravens need Andrews or likely to step up and start dating Lady Gaga to overcome the Chiefs and the Swifties. Ravens have a really good roster, man. They really do. But they don't have a ton of depth. And I think that they could go win a Super Bowl, but I have no confidence in them to go win a Super Bowl because they've got to stay extremely healthy, and it's football and it's the Ravens. And I feel like every year, with the exception of like 3 since 2015, they've had 20 guys on the IR. I just don't trust them to stay healthy enough to win a Super Bowl this year.
We'll see. It'll be fun. Yeah. I haven't thought about the Ravens. The Orioles are too good.
Don C. Brandish sucks. He means Bradish.
He corrected himself. Losing Bradish sucks. And he said damn autocorrect.
Yeah. That whole thing. Losing Kyle Bradish with 2 Ds sucks. Dan autocorrect. Man, did you turn
fix your keyboard, bro?
Did you turn autocorrect off when typing that? Can you turn autocorrect off? I bet you can. Potentially dumb question. Can Jordan Westburg qualify for Rookie of the Year? No, he can't. He had more than 130 at-bats last year.
Yeah, he doesn't qualify.
He does not qualify. Don C.
His autocorrect was fine on that one.
Yeah. Paul Brownies. That was a rough day. It actually took 2 days for that to fully wear off for me. Like the second day was like a normal. I just smoked a little bit of weed and watched TV. It was like a normal one of those. That brownie was like, oh my god.
Don't you have a 12 o'clock call? We're here talking about pot brownies.
I do. It's between 12 and 3. I wanted to do it earlier than later because I've got something to do at 3 o'clock today. Do you have to go, Ryan? We can.
No.
Okay. Adit said last year World Series winners scored 47, 50, and 53% of the runs via the home runs. Also, the team that out-homered the other last year in the first 3 rounds went 21-4 in the playoffs because the Orioles well, that's it. Adit, best comment of the year. Orioles win the World Series.
Yep.
Best comment of the
I
year.
think the Locked On Orioles thread pulled up those numbers as well. Look, reliance on the homer, you're gonna have some slumps offensively when you're not able to hit the ball out of the park. But when you're hitting homers and you got a lineup that top to bottom is capable of doing that, you're gonna win more than you're gonna lose.
Yeah, for sure. Don, he likes that audit. Mahmood, great stat. More of that autocorrect. Great live stream. I love the Saturday morning show, guys. We love doing it too, and that's why we did it for 2 hours today. Good Lord. We did this remotely, so we could only do it for an hour from my home office, and now it's back to 2 hours. But at least we don't have to drive to the studio. And Don laughing at he's either laughing at us making fun of his autocorrect or my brownie story. Either way, that's going to do it for us here on the Bat Around. Thank you to all of you who tuned in and stuck around for the full 2 hours that we weren't supposed to do today. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Without you, we don't have a show. And thank you especially to all of our loyal listeners, viewers, fans of the Bat Around. Without you, we definitely do not have a show. Until next week, see ya.